Just a reminder that some other options at your disposal through Manhattan Prep. Always welcome to come try a trial live class in person or online. No strings attached. So come for session one and see what the GMAT's all about and see what our online or live classes are like. You can also check out our kind of preview of GMAT Interact, our on-demand course, and just go to this website to find more. And of course, we have more free GMAT prep hours happening every month. I think we've got at least 2 in December. So welcome. I see other people coming in. Thanks for spending some time with us. Let's get started. What we're going to cover today is a single kind of quant topic. We refer to these questions as overlapping sets. And I'm hoping to give you guys some good mechanics to apply on these problems should you attempt them. We're going to take a look at what we call 2-set problems, and then maybe we'll get to 3-set problems at the end. This is a mechanic-heavy class, or mechanic-heavy hour. We will be talking about some general strategies here and there, but this is meant to be a resource for people who want to get better specifically on these types of problems, overlapping sets. So I'll be asking for your feedback throughout class. If you're watching this, chime in with your thoughts. I don't want to have to talk the whole time. Just got over a cold, so I'm going to try to keep it together. All right, so the essential elements for overlapping set problems. Really essential elements, really essential element, depending on how you look at it. You need what I'm going to call multiple either or categorizations. Yeah, that sounds very technical. What does that really mean? Let me give you an example. Any integer is either odd or even. It is impossible for an integer to be both odd and even, or neither odd nor even. So think of any integer, and I guarantee you it's either odd or even. That is what I mean by an either or categorization. Try to think of some others. What else is a good either or categorization? It can be in numbers. It can be in other things, other categories. Hit me up in the chat box if you have an example. All right, so yeah, you can hit me up privately in chat, or you can send it to the group. So I have one suggestion that is positive or negative. And I kind of like this because it's not even limited to integers anymore. However, I'm going to say this is very close to an either or categorization. And I'm wondering why I won't give this kind of the 100% stamp of approval. I think if we had suggested positive or non-positive numbers, I would be on board. But not every number has to be either positive or negative. Don't forget about 0. Yes, one of the most important numbers out there. 0 technically breaks this either or categorization. It is neither positive nor negative. It is even, however, so it does fit the first example. I had another example, prime numbers. I guess we're kind of thinking about integers as either prime or non-composite. And maybe I'm inferring a little bit too much from what someone said, but technically this isn't perfectly binary either, right? Because like the number 1 is neither prime nor composite. So you could probably say integers are either prime or non-prime. And that's like the safe way to make something either or. Yeah. Cool. There's some other examples that aren't particularly quant focused. Like if you take a shot in basketball, that shot either goes in or it doesn't. There is no kind of, well, it didn't do either of those. No, it had to either go in the basket or miss it. Sorry, I have a comment in chat. How about 2? 2 is a prime number and it is even. That is true. I am not saying those are mutually exclusive right now. Maybe we'll use that as an example. So when you have multiple of these either or categorizations, you have the ingredients for an overlap. So Chidza, I'm going to try to riff off of your example in a moment. Before I go into numbers, let's talk about something maybe less daunting. Let's talk about basketball. Let's keep talking about basketball a little bit. I am very bad at basketball, but I do like it. So a field goal attempt, I know field goal, that sounds like football. Technically a shot during the actual game play is called a field goal in basketball. This distinguishes it from a foul shot or a free throw. So a field goal attempt is either made or missed, and any field goal attempt is either for 2 or 3 points. And so we now have multiple either or categorizations, which means we have the potential for overlap. And with these 2 either or categorizations, we have 4 potential overlaps. We have 2-point shots that go in, and we have 2-point shots that do not go in. We have 3-point shots that go in, and of course we have 3-point shots that do not go in. Every shot that is taken, every field goal attempt can be categorized as one of these 4 kind of combinations of characteristics. And so Chidza, what I would say is if we're going to create the corresponding thing, not for basketball shots, but for maybe integers, you could say integers are odd or even, and integers are prime or non-prime. And now we have some overlaps. We've got odd primes, we have odd non-primes. We have even primes, probably not primes plural. I think we know there's only one of those, but we'll just go ahead and categorize this as even primes, and we have even non-primes. And what this would look like is most of the primes are odd, and most of the evens are non-primes, but there is potential overlap, right? You can just come up with some examples here: 7, 9, 2, and 4. So there are numbers that fit each label. Cool. So let's take a look at a problem, and then I'll use it to start talking about how you can organize your work through it. Here's your first one of the day. Give you 2 minutes or so to think through this. And I am not giving you answer choices for this. If you have an answer, you're welcome to submit it to me privately in chat. So just send it to the panelists, not the attendees. That's been a minute. Give you another minute to think. Good fix, Laura. All right, a little more time. All right, that's been about 2 minutes. So before we get into, you don't have to apologize. Before we get into solving, let me just ask you, I know it says overlapping sets on the screen, or it did, if you can't see it now, but how would you know that that's what kind of question this is if I didn't spill the beans earlier, right? How do you know this is an overlapping set question? One of the more recent videos I did was on kind of recognition, focused on quant. Like, how do you recognize this problem as an overlapping set problem, distinguishing it from other types of problems? Well, well, yeah, we have the words either and or, and I said we're dealing with either or categorizations here. An animal can either be a pig or a cow. Right? You cannot have some hybrid pig cow. And in addition to that, yeah, I got a good response here. The animals have either been fed or they've not been fed. Maybe you're reading this and you're like, 180 of the animals have been fed. What about the other animals, right? So you can kind of infer as you're reading that that is another either or categorization. And that gives us 4 potential overlaps. I've got a good one in here. Here they are. The lucky cows and the unlucky cows, and the lucky pigs and the unlucky pigs. Yes. Although in some cultures, cows and pigs are just always lucky. So, but the ones that have been fed and the ones that haven't been fed. And so when you have 2 of these either or categorizations, these 2 binary options, right? Cow or pig, fed or unfed. The way to organize this is, in my opinion, through what we call the double set matrix. So I will tell you, I used to use the Venn diagrams, the 2 overlapping circles, and the matrix is the way to go. All right, it just sounds cooler too. Sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Venn. So here's how you're gonna set this up, all right? 3 vertical lines, 3 horizontal lines. And you wanna do this so you have 2 basically centered columns and 2 centered rows. In the columns, you want to place one of your either or categorizations. So I can either be a cow, or one of these animals is either a cow or it's a pig. All right, so every animal will be placed in one of those 2 columns. It is impossible for an animal to exist in both of those columns because, again, there's no such thing as a pig cow. Okay. In the 2 rows in the middle, you'll put the other either or option. So I'm going to call this fed and unfed. You can label it however you want. I often like to label it with an F with a slash through it. So it's like not fed. Now, this is important to have this set up correctly. If you set up your matrix with cows here, and well, I know pigs are like kind of the opposite of cows in this problem, so we'll put pigs running against that direction. Now you've created the pig cow, okay? What is a pig cow? There is no such thing. In addition, this box here seems to represent the animals that have simultaneously been fed and not been fed, and that's also impossible. So if you find yourself in this position, if you find yourself trying to account for pig cows, immediately reset your matrix. Remember, your either or categorizations, your either or pairs need to run parallel. Cow, pig, fed, unfed. All right, so this is going to allow us to label all the 4 overlaps. The fed cows go in the top left. The cows that are unfed go right below that. Same things for the pigs that were fed and the pigs that were unfed. But the real kind of utility of the double set matrix is these boxes on the right and bottom that I haven't used. Okay, and this is what kind of sets apart the matrix from the Venn diagram. So what we're going to do in these kind of the far right column and the bottom row is try to keep track of our totals. So this box here should represent all of the animals that have been fed, whether they're cows or pigs. I am going to add up left to right on my matrix. So whatever this box is plus whatever this box is equals this box, the total animals that have been fed. Likewise, you add up top to bottom. So this box should represent all of the cows, whether they've been fed or unfed. Right? This will represent all the animals that have not been fed. This will represent all of the pigs. And that means the bottom right box should represent all of the animals on the farm here. All right, you add up left to right, you add up top to bottom, and so the entire total goes in the bottom right. All right, so now that we have kind of our organization, now we have to go through and fill this thing out. So read this thing down and start placing values into what you know. There are 240 animals. That's going to be our total. And ultimately what we're looking for is how many of the cows have been fed, right? Cows that have been fed. So we have kind of a lot of work to do to kind of figure out this unknown, but we also have a bunch of clues we haven't accounted for. So all of 240 animals are either cows or pigs, and 180 of the animals have been fed. Oh, those are the lucky animals. Think about where you're going to place the 180. Where are you going to place it? Yeah, it should be right here, right? All of the animals that have been fed, 180 of them have been fed. Let's go ahead and write it in. Now, before you speed on through to the next bit of the problem, remind yourself you're supposed to add up top to bottom. And if you know the values of 2 items in a row, you should be able to figure out the value of the third item, right? 180 plus something is 240. That something needs to be the remaining animals that haven't been fed, those 60 hungry animals. All right, so the number 60 is not presented in here, but it is inferable, it is implied, and you'll have to write this down. All right, let's keep going. If there are 80 cows, oh, thank you very much. 80 cows, where do I put 80? This is not distinguishing between fed and unfed cows, it's just 80 cows, period. That's gonna go here. And again, we have 2 items in a row. It's like tic-tac-toe, right? You see 2 in a row, go ahead and finish this thing off. 80 plus something is 240. That should be 160. Cool. All right, 80 cows and 45 of the pigs. All right, so of the 160 pigs, 45 have not been fed. All right, so think about where that's going to go. I'm talking about pigs, I'm talking about not been fed or unfed. I'm going to have to put 45 right there. How many of the cows have been fed today? All right, remember, if you have 2 in a row or 2 in a column, you should be able to figure out the missing block. And so with the way our grid looks right now, we could go in a couple directions. I could figure out this value or this value. Remember, add top to bottom or add left to right. So something plus 45 is 160. And I saw that value as an answer choice that came in. So just be very careful. And something plus 45 is 60. I'll go ahead and label them both. They're different colors to tell you could have gone either direction. And now you could have used either of these to figure out your unknown. Something plus 115 is 180. Something plus 15 is 80. It's got to be 65. So the answer to this problem would be 65. Let me go ahead and take a moment here and see if you guys have any questions in chat before we move on to the next problem. Yes, that is a slightly rarer option, Laura. Laura is talking about the potential of, it would be hard for me to make up this problem on the spot, but if you had 3 animal types, let's say you didn't just have cows and pigs, but you had cows, pigs, and what's another? Goats. All right, goats. And they've also been fed or unfed. And now you have, instead of a 2x2 cross, you'd have a 2x3 cross. And that's still doable. You can still do that. You wouldn't have an either or categorization in one case. You'd have an either or. Okay, cows or pigs or goats. You can be one of those 3 things. Again, there's no such thing as a hybrid pig goat. Okay, so you'd have maybe in this case 3 columns for your animals, 2 for the if they've been fed or unfed, and then you'd have like 6 boxes in the middle. You'd still add left to right. You'd still add top to bottom. You'd usually need more information to solve in there, or something in the problem would say like, it would kind of couple pigs and goats somehow, right? It'll say like, yeah, 80 are cows, and then you'd know that like 160 are the sum of the pigs and the goats, and maybe you wouldn't need to know any more than that. Cool. You can definitely still use the matrix there. Yeah. By the way, if you set up a matrix and you wrote C and P as your rows and F and UF or F and not F for your columns, it should still work. Your graph will just be kind of reflected over some axis or transformed in some way, but it should still, all the elements should be there. What's the term? Some fancy term, isomorphic or something. That might be wrong. It's not isotopic though. All right, let's go on to the next one. Give you some time to think through this one. I think this one's a little harder. That has been a minute. You can hit me up with an answer choice if you have one. Just do it privately. All right, so that's been 2 minutes. Haven't gotten too many answers. I've gotten a couple. I'll tell you what, if you don't want to own your answer choice, I will let you submit your answer anonymously in this poll so I can kind of know what you're thinking. Yeah, I already have more answer choices than what came into chat. Interesting. I have two answers that are kind of duking it out here. Like they just keep like, one's in the lead and the other one catches up. All right, let's go ahead and stop it there. So I have just over 60% of the answers on answer D, and like 2/3 of the answers on answer D, and 1/3 on answer C. So a pretty clean split. I don't know if maybe the audience watching on YouTube can't see this, but 1/3 of the answers are C and 2/3 are D. So let me go ahead and just write that out here. Let's put a little heart here because you guys like D. And we'll put a question mark here because people kind of like C. And actually, some people are like toggling back between the two in private chat. So I think what we should do is at least set up our charts. And I'm interested in kind of hearing how, oh, I have an answer choice E to kind of mix things up a little bit. Anyone want to pick A or B? No? Okay. It's all right. All right, let's go ahead and set this thing up. So I don't really care in particular like which orientation you set it up, but we have to make sure we have our either or categorizations in running parallel, okay? Cows and pigs, or fed and unfed, but not cows and pigs. So let's think about what the two kind of binary decisions are in here. Yeah, we've got GMATers. This is very personal, okay? This should kind of strike a chord. We have GMATers who take the exam more than once. And you can either take the GMAT more than once, or you can take it less than twice, I suppose, or only once. You can't take it 0 times because then you are not a GMAT test taker. So let's go ahead and try to write that in. Let's pick a different color. We'll just go with black. So you can take the exam, let's just say once, or twice or more. Call it twice plus. And the other category is your score range, right? You can have a high score of 650 or greater, so we'll call it 650 plus. Or you can have a score range that falls below that, right? A max score that falls below this, so we'll call it less than 650. You can call it 640 minus if you want. And now don't forget your totals, right? Totals, add left to right, add top to bottom. And that means my overall total should be here. Well, that's a little interesting because I actually don't know how many test takers there are. Like it doesn't tell me there's 240 animals on the farm. It doesn't tell me exactly how many test takers there are. So what should I write in the total box here? Question mark? T? What should I write? Did anyone write something there? Or did you like write a little frowny face? Yeah, I think I don't know your first name, but yeah, here comes some other people to second you. I think we're going to write 100 here. You could write 100 or 100%. It doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and write 100. All right, let's start filling stuff in. 10% of GMAT test takers take the exam more than once and have a high score of 650 or greater. Tell me in chat where that's going to go. Where is that going to go? Where that's going to go? Where is this number going to go? So more than once and high score of 650 or greater. So more than once is twice plus and 650 or greater. So this is going to be 10%. There you go. Nice. All right, what am I going to do with this 20? The 20%. Surely I have to do something with that. Yeah, I'm getting some suggestions. So I had some suggestions. Hey, this one goes in the top right. And now I have suggestions. Let's put the 20 in the top left, okay? 20% of GMAT test takers, and what are the categorizations here? Take the test only once, score of 650 or greater. So we're putting 20% here. Okay, well, we can go ahead and add this up if we want, but let's see what else there is. If 40% of GMAT test takers take the exam more than once, so that's 2 or more times. So 40% of not the people who have a score range or something, but of all GMAT test takers take the exam more than once. So let's go ahead and put 40 here. What am I looking for? What percent of GMAT test takers have a high score of less than 650? That is here. All right, let's see if I can find it. Well, if 20% and 10% are in the same row, I should add them up left to right, and I should get 30%. Maybe that's why some people are picking 30%. But that's not the box we're looking for. We're looking for this box, right? And 30% plus something gives me 100%. That's the remaining 70%. Well, that's interesting because you might notice this was not used. That should give you pause, especially on problem solving. If a problem gives you a value or some fact and you don't use it, we should pump the brakes a little bit. So let's rewind. Let's rewind a little bit and see, like, what is that 40% like really doing for us here? I feel pretty good about the 10%. 10% of GMAT test takers take the exam more than once, okay? So we were in this column, and have a high score of 650 or greater. All right, definitely here. 20% of GMAT test takers who take the test only once. This little modifying word is really important. 20% of the test takers who take the test only once. Well, only once is this column. Here would be all the test takers who take the exam only once. I'm not sure what this is. Let me just go ahead and call it X. But 20% of this value have a score of 650 or greater. So it's not 20% of the total, it's 20% of X. And that's going to change the game a little bit, because now when you get here, 40% of the test takers take the exam more than once. That does go here. And now let's see what happens. I think things will change a little bit, and we should not be at 70. Yeah, broken heart. Let me know when you have it. We're still looking for this, right? We just have to go a different route. So remember, you add left to right. Something plus 40% is 100%. I know of all the testers, 40% take it multiple times. That means 60% only take it once. Now we're going to work to this top left. 20% of this group have a score of 650 or greater. So 20% of this 60%. What is 20% of 60%? I'll take 10% of 60 is 6. 20% of 60 would be 12%. And now we can add across. 12% here, 10% here gives you 22%. And that leaves the remaining 78%. as scoring 650 or under 650. So the one answer E I had in chat, I picked answer E, sad face. No, that is the correct answer. Don't be sad. There we go, happy face. There it is. Yeah, a little tricky. So you really have to watch what you're taking percentages or fractions of in these problems. Really kind of tricky. Cool. All right, let's move on. Got to talk a little bit about how to do these problems in data sufficiency. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to think through this. That has been a minute. All right. That's been 2 minutes. I'm going to try to keep up in chat. All right, let's get started. So on data sufficiency, you've got to approach these a little bit differently because we have to handle the information in rounds, right? Remember, there's a chance that you don't need both of these pieces of information to solve, and we have to kind of approach this in a pretty organized fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the answer choices. I just have to clean up some of the screen, and I'm going to give me some space to work on statement 1 and statement 2. Now, what I would recommend is just drawing 2 grids, all right? And put all the stuff you can from the initial stem into both grids. So let's fill out this one on the left first. Got a 1-day seminar consisting of a morning session and afternoon session. Each of the 128 people attended at least 1 of the 2 sessions. How many of the people attended the morning session only? Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put M here, all right? Because I know morning is going to have to go somewhere. What I want to know is what do I put in the column next to M? What is the opposite of morning session? Careful, it is not the afternoon session, right? Morning and afternoon are not binary. It's not you either went to the morning or you went to the afternoon, because you are allowed to go both. In fact, statement 1 tells you that some people did go to both. So yes, it's either morning or not the morning. You either went to the morning session or you didn't go to the morning session. There is no in between. And so that is one of those binary oppositions. Now we need the same thing for the two rows, and that's going to be going to the afternoon session or not going to the afternoon session. Cool. I know that 128 people went to this seminar. Nice. So that is going to be my total, overall total. What am I looking for? How many of the people attended the morning session only? Okay, so only is a great signal word for these problems, right? We saw either and or. Sometimes you'll see both, only. Those are good signal words because they represent either overlaps or not overlaps, right? Only means just one of the sections, and neither means none. So I'm looking for morning and not afternoon. That would be morning only. Now, before you race ahead, there is one other thing I should be able to fill out in this chart. And if you have not filled it out, take a moment to do so. What is missing here? Yes. Yes. It's each person in attendance attended at least one of the two sessions. So you are not allowed to go to this seminar and just like hang out at the bar all day. All right. You've got to go to one of the two sessions, which means no one is allowed in this box. So that is a 0. And that I think is what you can get from the STEM. So now that you've got that from the STEM, let's put the exact same stuff in our grid in statement 2. And now we can tackle each one separately. So what I know in statement 1 is that 3/4 of all the people, so 3/4 of 128, you actually don't need to know what that is, okay, because it's data sufficiency. And so you just know, hey, I could figure out 3/4 of 128 if I wanted to, but I don't really want to. So I'm going to call this 3/4 of 128, which is a specific number, attended both sessions. Is that going to be enough for me to figure this out? I don't believe you have enough elements, right? You have no 2 in a rows or 2 in a columns. This does not count as 2 in a row because you do not know what this is, right? And if this is an unknown, then this is an unknown, and you have 2 unknowns in a single column. So knowing, even if you knew that 3/4 of 128 is 96, there's still too many ways to fill out this grid. And that means statement 1 is not sufficient on its own. So we can go ahead and update our answer grid. All right, so let's go take a look at statement 2 by itself, all right? We go take a look at statement 2 by itself. We say 7/8 of the people attended the afternoon session. So afternoon session, 7/8 of 128. Cool. What does that imply? Well, remember, you've got to add top to bottom. If 7/8 went to the afternoon session, then that implies that 1/8 did not. 1/8 of 128 is a specific number. And you also know that that specific number is the sum of our question mark and 0, which means that our question mark is also 1/8 of 128. This is a specific value. You could figure it out if you needed to, but you don't need to. You just know that it represents a specific value to this value question. And so statement 2 is sufficient on its own. That is answer B. It is tricky, especially if you miss this 0. If you miss the 0, you will think, again, you have 2 unknowns here, and it's not sufficient. All right. If you miss the 0, this will look not sufficient. And then you'd combine it with statement 1. So when you combine with statement 1, I would just take everything in statement 1 and put it here. That would tell you that this is 1/8 of 128, and you'd see if you can solve it from there. Okay, so only when the two statements alone are not sufficient, then you get to combine them. So here's a way you could do that here. If I change this problem a little bit, all right? You should see that I just changed it a little bit. How many of the people attended the morning session only? Okay, so 3/4 attended both sessions. I'm going to put that here. 3/4 of 128, not sufficient for reasons said earlier. Statement 1 did not change, but statement 2 does change, all right? Statement 2 says 1/8 of the people did not attend the morning session, okay? So not the morning, 1/8 of 128. Cool, that implies this is 7/8 of 128. But that's still not enough to figure this out because I don't know what this box is. So statement 2 would be insufficient as well. And now you would get to combine them. So now I would take this and just place it in my second box and say, hey, I'm combining statements 1 and 2 now. And this will tell me that this must be the missing, well, 3/4 of 128. This is 3/4 is 6/8 of 128. This is 7/8 of 128. This needs to be 1/8 of 128. And that now would be sufficient. So once you've checked each grid on its own, then combine them if neither of them were sufficient. That's how I would set this up in data sufficiency. 2 grids, 1 for statement 1, 1 for statement 2, and then if you need to, combine the elements. Cool. Cool, any questions? All right, well, we got a little bit of time. So I am going to throw a bone to the people who want to work on the tough ones, So Jeff, what happens when there's 3 categories? Yes, like if you're cow or pigs, fed and unfed, and I don't even know, yes, cows and pigs, male and female, okay? Still treated as an either or distinction on the GMAT. So what happens when you get that? Well, I think you've got 3 options. And the first option is maybe the most appropriate. And that is to flee, because these problems are almost always very difficult and not worth your time. Right? The GMAT is trying to sucker you into answering this really hard question and take a lot of time to do it. And there's lots of ways to mess it up. So I think for the majority of people, running away is the best idea, okay? You do not have to get every question right on the GMAT. You will not get every question right on the GMAT. Make this one of the ones that you're gonna miss. But I do know there are stubborn people out there because I'm one of them. And so if you are gonna do them, I think you've got 2 other options. You make a 3-circle Venn diagram and see if you can work from the inside out. And if that doesn't work, then go back to step 1, run away. But if you're gonna do it, then you wanna consider what's been double and triple counted. So I will talk about 2 problems, I think, and then I'll show some bonus ones for the end. So read this one down. I won't give you time to complete it, but just get familiar with it. All right, so are you allowed to like pizza and hoagies and tacos? Yes, and I hope you do. So you have the potential to put check marks in all 3 of those categories. Is it possible to like only pizzas and hoagies but not tacos? Yes, I guess it is, but why? Is it possible to like none of these 3 foods? Well, I guess, but I would want to have a talk with you, okay? But there's a lot of options here. And what you don't want to do is create a triple set matrix, because that triple set matrix has to be 3-dimensional, and those are really hard to draw, okay? So what I would do is I would create these overlapping circles, a circle for pizza folk, a circle for the people who like hoagies, and a circle for the people who like tacos. And then I would work from the inside out, if you can. You cannot always do this, but you should check to see if you can. All right. 25 people like all three. They're going to go in this special spot in the middle. Let's work up the graph. 40 people like pizzas and tacos. Now be careful. It doesn't say 40 like only pizza and tacos. It says 40 people like pizza and tacos. And so they're also allowed to like hoagies. So those 40 people need to be the overlap between P and T, but that includes these 25 people. So if this weird little football shape should add to 40, then that means there need to be 15 more people in this little, I don't even know what kind of shape that is. 37 like hoagies and tacos. All right, well, that's this football. 25 of them already like pizza. That implies that there are 12 more who like hoagies and tacos but do not like pizza. And then 28 like pizzas and hoagies. That's this football, which means this has to be 3. Now you can keep working from the inside out. Switch colors here. If you know that 58 people like tacos, well, here's 40 of them, and here's another 12. That's 52 in this weird shape. I guess all the shapes are weird, but that's 52. So that means this needs to be another 6, right? And if there are 45 people that like hoagies, this is 40 of them. That's another 5. And if there are 48 who like pizza, this is 43 of them. That means this is another 5. So you can keep working inside out, but you actually don't need to do that on this problem. What's the number of students who like none or only one of the foods? Well, you've already accounted for the people who like exactly 3 or exactly 2 of the foods. And you can only like so many foods. You can like none of the foods, 1 of the foods, 2 of the foods, or 3 of the foods. We've got 25 people who like 3 of the foods, and another 3 plus 12 is 15 plus 15, 30 people who like 2 of the foods. So 25 like all 3, 30 like just 2, and that means you've accounted for 55 people. There's 75 people in the entire survey, so there are 20 people who don't like 3 or 2 of the foods. That means there are 20 people who like either 1 or none of the foods. And so the answer would be 20. You actually don't need to find all the individual spots here. So work inside out until you have enough information. So that is kind of one way to proceed. All right, the other way to proceed is a little different, and I'll kind of run through this. Let me give you a different problem. Give you a moment to read this. Oh boy, all right, so now maybe you understand why I recommend running away, right? These problems are just kind of scary. They take a lot of time. And because they're really hard, the GMAT really doesn't care if you miss them, right? Like if you're trying to, I don't know, score, let's say you're trying to score a 650 on the GMAT, you're trying to get a 45 on Quant, let's just say. This is a problem that would be much harder than 45 on Quant. So you don't have to get it right. You're not trying to prove you want to get a 50 on Quant. You're not trying to prove that that's who you are. You're trying to get a 45 on Quant. So let all the 49, 50, 51 level Quant problems go and save your time and energy for the ones that are at your level. Okay. So the way that I would think about this problem, and you can't work inside out, okay, on this one, because if I tried setting it up, I'd have 3 here. 3 speak all 3 languages, but then what? Then I'm trying to figure these out, and I know like 38 people are in this bubble, but like how many are here and here and here? It gets a little weird to think about. So the way I think about it is like this. I know there are 85 people in this club. Like, let me get all these people in the auditorium, all right, in an auditorium. Like, all right, everyone from the foreign language club here, cool, we got 85 of you. All right, 85 people here. All right, raise your hand if you speak French. 38 hands go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 38. Cool. Raise your hand if you speak Italian. 25 hands go up. Raise your hand if you speak Spanish. 40 hands go up. That's weird. I just counted 103 hands. Some of you raised your hand more than once, right? I have 18 extra counts, right? So some of you people raised your hand more than once because I counted 18 too many in kind of some kind of way of logically thinking about that. So I want to think about like who's responsible for those 18 extra counts, like what went into that. Okay, so the people responsible for the extra counts are obviously the people who raise their hand more than once, and they're the people who speak multiple languages, multiple foreign languages. So I know the people who speak all 3 languages, I've counted a couple extra times. And the people who speak 2 of the 3 languages, I've also counted, okay? But this is how I think about these, all right? If you speak all 3 languages, I counted you 2 extra times. Like I counted you once the first time for French, but then when you raised your hand for Italian and for Spanish, I counted you an extra 2 times. Whereas people who speak 2 of the 3 languages, I counted them like 1 extra time. Right? Everyone gets counted once, and then some people get counted an extra time. Those are the people who speak 2 languages. Some people get counted an extra time, the people who speak 3 languages. So each of the people who speak just 2 languages got counted 1 extra time. All right, so this is how I like to think about this. There were 3 people who speak all 3 languages. So there are 3 people that I counted 2 extra times. They're responsible for 6 of my 18 extra counts. So that means there's still 12 extra counts unaccounted for, and they must be from this category of people. Now these people are counted just 1 extra time each. So there must have been 12 of them. Yeah, 12 people I counted 1 extra time each. Those are the people who speak 2 languages. And that means the answer to this is 12. How many speak exactly 2 of the languages? That's the way I think about it. I think there are a couple other ways. I will quickly run through them just to reiterate that these are problems you should run away from. But if I create this Venn diagram and I label all of these, there's 7 variables. Oh my gosh, this looks terrible. Well, I guess there's not 7 variables because I know G is 3. So I'll fix that. All right. Here's the textbook way, and this is why you want to run away. I know that 38 people speak French. So 3 of them are right here, which means there's 35 more people hiding in A, D, and E. A, D, and E is 35. I know 25 people speak Italian, but 3 of them are hiding here. So it means there's 22 more people in B, D, and F. And finally, 40 people speak Spanish, 3 of them are here. That means there's 37 people in C, E, and F. Somebody stop me. Well, it might not be that intuitive, but you could just go add all of these up and you would get an A, a B, a C, a couple of Ds, a couple of E's, and a couple of F's. And that all adds up to 94. But I also know that if there's 85 people in the club and 3 of them are here, then there are 82 people spread out among the other 6 letters. A, B, C, D, E, and F should add up to the remaining 82 people. And now you can subtract these two equations with 6 variables. And what will remain is a single D, E, and F. And D plus E plus F represent all the people that speak exactly 2 languages. And that is answer 12 again. Yeah, so who wants to do that? Nobody. So another reason to run away. I think it is possible to work backwards here, though it gets a little funky. But if you suppose that there's 9 people who speak all the language, or speak exactly 2 of the languages, what you could do is try this. Let's try this and see. If there are 9 people in these 3 question marks, let me just go ahead and say, let's go 3, 3, and 3. That would total 9. Let's see if this can work. How many people speak Italian? 25. There's 9 of them here. 3, 3, 3 is 9. So that means there's another 16 that only speak Italian. Okay. How many people speak Spanish? 40. There's 3, 3, 3. There's 9 here. That means 31 more speak only Spanish, because now this bottom circle adds to 40. Same thing with French. 38 people speak French. There's 9 right here. So 29 speak only French. Okay. I've got values for everything. Let's add them up and see if I get to 85. Let's see, well, 29 and 31 is 60. Plus 4 3s is 12. 60 plus 12 is 72. Plus 16 is 88. 88 is too high. All right. That's the wrong answer, but let's try D and see what happens if I try D. If you do the same thing with D, you will also find that D is not right, and we already know what the right answer is. But we could try this. Let's make this 5, 5, and 5. That would give me 15 here. And go through the same process. 25 speak Italian, there's 13 here, that would be 12. 40 people speak Spanish, there's 13 here, so that would be another 27. And then 38 speak French, there's 13 here, so this would be 25. And let's add these up and see if I get to 85. Well, 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15, plus 25 is 40. A 3 and a 27 is another 30. 40 plus 30 is 70, plus 12 is 82. Darn, that is too low. And so you know you're supposed to target 85, and so it's got to be here. Again, the working backwards also takes so long. So the moral of the story here is skip these questions. Or no, everyone wants to do them, but I would say do them after the GMAT is over for the brain exercise. Yeah, I had a question real quick. Let me see if I can address it, because we are kind of at time. But let me see if I can address it. So the question was, why did I double the 2 extra times each? Yeah, so just like think about it from the perspective of being in the auditorium and like, Laura, let's suppose that you do speak all 3 of these languages. So when I ask, hey, who's spoken French? Or who speaks French? Laura, you'd raise your hand. I'd be like, all right, who speaks Italian? Laura, you'd raise your hand again. Who speaks Spanish? Laura, your hand's up a 3rd time. You speak all the languages. I counted you 3 times, but you're only 1 person in the audience. So I've counted you 2 extra times. So if I know that there are, like each of the people who speak all 3 languages have been counted 2 extra times. And I'm trying to get rid of I'm trying to figure out where these extras come from. So Laura, I counted you 2 extra times, and I counted Bob, because he speaks all 3 languages, I counted him 2 extra times. And I counted Raul, he speaks all 3 languages, I counted him 2 extra times. You 3 people make up 6 of my extra counts. And I still have 12 extra counts, because I know I've made 18 extra counts, right? So the 3 people who speak all the languages, I've counted 2 extra times each. And that is why I'm doubling it here. Yeah. You do not want to triple because I didn't count you 3 extra times. I counted you 3 times, but I am thinking about the extra counts, right? So the person who only speaks French, I didn't count them an extra time. I counted them once, and that's exactly how many times I wanted to count them. The people who speak French and Spanish, I counted them twice, but they only represent a single person each. So I counted each of them 1 extra time. So I'm not, speaking 3 languages means it means I've counted you 3 times, but I've counted you 2 times more than I should have, or I wanted to. Yeah, it's all about the extra counts, not the actual counts. Yeah, if you wanted to do the actual counts, you could do it that way as well. But I think it's harder to think about that way. Maybe you disagree. Cool, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. What I wanna do is I wanna put 2 extra challenging problems up, and it's mostly for the people who are gonna watch on video, but if you're doing this right now, you're welcome to take a screenshot and think about them. But I'm gonna put 2 extra problems up. This is another triple, and so you guys can talk in the comment box about what answers you got. Bounce ideas off of each other. So you can go ahead and take a screenshot right now, and if you're watching on video, go ahead and pause. I will not spoil the answer. Maybe I'll take a look at the comment section one day and see what people think. And then I have one other question that is based off of our first problem. It's an alternate version of the cows and pigs. And occasionally you will see these problems with inequalities in them. So that is what this problem looks like. And you are welcome to chat about what you think the answer to this one would be too. So big takeaways, systems of organization for the double sets. All right, set up your grid. Either or categories run parallel, cows and pigs, not cows and pigs. Fill in what you know when you can. Watch out for modifiers. Yes, there seems like a sentence correction tip, but 20% of the takers of the GMATers who take the exam only once. Yeah, that who really changes the scope of what we're taking percent of. So whenever you're taking fractions or percents, remember fractions, percents on these problems are always relative. Percents are always relative, but fractions on these problems are also relative. Relative to what? A fraction of what? A percentage of what? That base is really important, so don't lose that. And then triple overlapping sets, run away. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and call it there. Reminder for your free options. Hope to see you in class one day or see you in another one of these.